There's been a lot of talk about Davey Martinez and being on the hot seat for the Washington Nationals. And on today's show, we're going to tackle that exact topic. Should Davey Martinez be on the hot seat?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter. Later on in today's show, we are joined by Ben Strober. It's not even later on. It's actually right now. But we're going to preview Game 3 of the Nats-Braves series. In the second segment, kind of get into this Nats 7-game losing streak. What's been going on? Is it time to sound the alarms about the 2025 Washington Nationals? We'll have that discussion later on in the show. But Ben, we got to start off with right now what is the hot topic in town with Davey Martinez. Man, what's going on?
Well, I mean, if you just scroll social media right now, if you follow this team with any passion at this point, you are probably very unhappy with how things have transpired this season. There has been regression that Nats fans didn't even really feel was possible this year. I think a lot of Nats fans, myself included, were a bit disappointed the team didn't progress a little bit more. Last year, despite bringing James Wood up, despite having a little bit more talent on the roster. And this year, the Nationals had preached to everyone. They felt like they were getting close to being competitive. There was all the talk in the offseason. Rizzo going on MLB Network saying that it was time to put the foot on the gas, spend some money because this ball club was going to compete. And, I had believed it for quite some time. I think the last time I came on your podcast, Ryan, I had said that I thought the Nationals were going to be competing for that third wild card spot in the National League this year. Mm-hmm. And I was wrong. And I'm going to say I was wrong, not because this Nationals team doesn't have talent. I think we have seen the flashes of what could be good with this team and why they should be winning more games. But the major flaw right now is the clubhouse is an absolute disarray. I think last night we saw it fully transpire with Dylan Cruz being rung up on a high pitch to lose that game last night, and Martinez camera panned over there and crickets. And that's just not what we're used to seeing from him. I think he has looked checked out. And I question it from really the first or second week of the season. I was like, it doesn't seem like there's much urgency with this Nationals team. They continue to lose. They blow these games, and it doesn't seem like anyone is bothered by it. But now that we've started to see some of the rumblings come out from within the clubhouse that players are getting frustrated, perhaps with the staff currently not being backed up after some bad calls. The players feel like that they've been closer than the record would indicate right now. And things have been really bottom of the barrel for this Nationals team at this point.
Yeah, like when I was watching last night's game, like honestly, it didn't even resonate with me at the time that Davey just kind of stood there when Dylan Cruz, like your player that has been really struggling so far this season, a top prospect in all of baseball coming into 2025. And you have him get rung up on a pitch that was an awful call, by the way, just an awful, abysmal call. And you see him just standing there. Ben, what was he doing? Like this is the thing that really kind of gets me, because again, the Nationals are on a 7-game losing skid, man. You're going to have to try to create some energy out there. You're playing the Atlanta Braves, and the Braves have been good recently. They just reached 500 for the first time this season. They're a lot better than what their record indicates. But This is still a divisional matchup. This is a time where Davey has to kind of rally the troops and get them in there and go and rip the umpires. You know what? Like, this is the time. And he just kind of sat there, and it's that camera shot of him just sitting at the top of the step, just looking out. That's the part where, in my opinion, where I was fuming about when I kind of rewatched it again last night after I did my little short YouTube video clip. I'm like, oh my God, like he did just kind of stand there. I don't know if the conversation should be about Davey Martinez and kind of where the Nationals are, because I think there's a big web here. And in my opinion, it starts with the ownership. It starts with the
Absolutely.
ownership not spending money this offseason. And who knows if they gave Mike Rizzo an opportunity to, and Mike Rizzo said no. But I'd like to assume that if Mike Rizzo was able to spend money, he would have spent it because this team is close. But you see it now. The flaws are in place, and Davey Martinez is starting to be one of those flaws. Davey at this point is kind of a deadbeat manager. It seems as if he is a dead man walking. And I like Davey Martinez. I think he is a better manager than what people give him credit for, but he does seem a little bit checked out. This is not the Davey Martinez that you and I watched in 2019, where in game the World Series, he went crazy ballistic and got tossed out of the game after the Nationals took that big lead in the 8th inning when Trey Turner had that weird thing where he ran on the infield grass. It was whatever at this point. But this is not the manager that was back there in 2019. It just doesn't have the feeling of him being a dead man walking, Ben.
I will say I miss that Davey Martinez. I miss the Davey Martinez that ran down the first baseline in Chicago, picked up the bag, and threw it toward the crowds at Wrigley Field. But what I'll say with Davey Martinez and why I think his time should come to an end here in Washington, whether that happens in the middle of the season, I don't personally believe it will. I think it comes after the year, given that the team has a club option for him after this 2025 season. I don't think he's the right guy to manage a young group of players that this Nationals team has. I don't think he's great for development of these players. You have some of your key top prospects, Dylan Cruz included, who struggling severely right now in the big leagues. It's a big question mark what they should do with him. Do they let him continue to struggle in the major leagues? Do you send him back down to AAA Rochester? But when Davey Martinez won the World Series with this team in 2019, they were the oldest team in baseball. Yeah, they had a couple of young pieces, of course. You had the phenom Juan Soto, who played well beyond his years at that point. But I think Martinez and the current staff that's in place, it's not just Martinez at this point. I think they have proven that they are not the best for the young development of players. We have seen players come through this organization that have not performed very well. They move out of the organization after a couple of years, and they start to excel in other places. So I think that says a lot about Martinez, about this staff, and how they are not built to help develop this young group of players. I think it's time to get some new voices in the clubhouse. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but I think it's going to happen soon because this rebuild's been going on for 4 years at this point, and we're not seeing any progression right now, and something has to change.
Yeah, and I think it's like you have seen, like when you would look at CJ Abrams and James Wood, like those guys have been awesome. Like Dylan Cruz, for instance. I mean, also Mackenzie Gore is in that conversation, who's taken a nice step up. But like the team's not winning, and the team is not generating wins. And I don't think a manager can just by himself like press the right buttons and get you in a winning situation. Like the Nationals bullpen is a disaster. The Nationals offense is a disaster. But also, you could bring in new voices. Darnell Coles has been here since 2022, I think.
2021.
2021. It's been a bad performance on Darnell Cole's part.
I think they've hit the third most amount of ground balls in Major League Baseball since then. And you see the clips, Ryan. You see the clips where CJ Abrams or somebody will elevate the ball to the deepest part of the ballpark in center, and all of a sudden Coles will be in the dugout in the player's ear, frustrated because they elevated the baseball or because they didn't take it the other way. I just don't really understand the philosophies that we've seen with some of these coaches. And I know the Nationals have done their best to try to really defend the performances of Darnell Coles, Davey Martinez this season, and say that, it's not their issue. But you brought up a great point earlier, Ryan, about this all being about ownership. And that's the biggest thing. I don't think we're going to see many changes within this organization until the Lerners finally do sell the team. I'm under the personal belief that they are still looking to sell the team, that it's going to happen within the next year or so. I guess all this TV stuff is kind of going to be the catalyst for what drives that forward. But the Lerners are very obviously pretty disinterested, I'd say, in owning this baseball team right now. They're not taking it as serious as they did when Ted was still around. And that's where things have to change, because before that happens, nothing is going to really improve from a standpoint. They're not going to become a great team again until that happens.
Yeah, and that's honestly, that is kind of where we're at right now, Ben. And that's the unfortunate thing, because again, like this team does have talent. And I went into this offseason this past year thinking like, well, if the Nationals go out there and sign a couple key veterans, and they did bring in Nathaniel Lowe, I'll give them credit for that. That's been a success story so far. Like, you needed more. And it wasn't just Nathaniel Lowe. Like, you needed bullpen help. You needed to bring in a solid veteran starting pitcher. And they thought that Trevor Williams would be that. Well, Trevor Williams is kind of starting to look back at his former self, and it's just not the part right now. But even then, to answer like the overall question as we kind of got into this segment, I do think Davey's seat should be warming. And this is something that has really changed. It's been over the last week. Maybe the Nationals get hot here and Davey Martinez really kind of riles up this team. But right now, there just seems to be no motivation. And they just kind of seem like they don't have the back of their manager at this point. And it's not to say, like, I know Davey Martinez is trying his best. We all know it's not an easy job. He can't go out there every single day. He's got to pick and choose his battles against umpires, but you got to pick a battle at some point this year, man. It has not happened so far. So Davey Martinez at this point, like, he's got to show me something, and he has not so far. And I think that has all of us frustrated right now. Ben, sounds like you're kind of in the same situation where, like, maybe let's give him the year and see what happens here. If the Nationals, if they win like 73 games, then it probably might be time to move on.
Yeah, I'd probably be willing to bet right now that there is a very low probability that Davey Martinez is the manager of this team next year, unless, there's some kind of miracle run here where the team rattles off a whole bunch of wins for the next couple months and sneaks back into playoff contention. I don't see that happening. There's too many holes still on this team right now. The bullpen ERA tied for the worst in baseball still. I don't think that's going to get any better. And it's funny because over at our studios in DC, every time I've produced for Linnell and we talk Nationals, always ask me, Ben, where do you think this Nationals team needs to be to make a move at the deadline, to go out and get some bullpen help or get somebody to be a starting pitcher? And I go, Linnell, it's not going to happen. They're absolutely not going to be in that position. They'll probably be selling at the deadline, and we might see Nathaniel Lowe get sold this year. That's kind of been the MO for this Nationals team. We become a farm system for one or two decent veteran players that we end up shipping at the deadline for some prospects. And it looks like we're probably heading that direction again this year.
And also, I'll just look at the record, 17-26. If we're 2-5 over the next 7 games, we're going to get to 19-31, Ben. Maybe that's all that Davey needs.
Oh, no.
Maybe that's all he needs. You never know.
If that record says 19-31, there's going to be a war on Twitter.
It's going to be a war. It is going to be so bad. But, I mean, hey, you never know, because it is kind of crazy to think about. Like, I wonder in 2019, whoever was hosting this podcast at the time, like, I wonder if they're thinking the same thing, being like, Davey sucks. Like, he should be on the hot seat. And then all of a sudden the Nats just come out of nowhere and win the World Series.
Ryan, there's a difference between being 19-31 with Anthony Rendon, Juan Soto, Ryan Zimmerman, and then being 19-31 with just James Wood, pretty much. There's a big difference.
CJ.
Well, this is kind of I wanted to get into with you a little bit here with Abrams and Wood. Those are two guys that I know people have discussed this organization is trying to extend currently. For all the Nationals fans out there that are listening that are hoping to see extensions for guys like James Wood very early in his career. He's a Boris guy, but that's not even about him being a Boris guy right now. It is not going to happen with this ownership. This ownership group is not going to add more money to its books currently. So do not bank on any extensions for these players. The team has to be sold before any of these conversations really go anywhere with positive momentum. Abrams, Wood, Garcia, I do not expect any of those players to receive contract extensions until new ownership comes in, whenever that does.
Yeah, I think that's a great conversation, Ben. And honestly, like, I agree with you at this point. And if you disagree, like, I'm glad that you have optimism, but I'd like to know where that optimism is coming from. You gotta
look at it from a real perspective for how this organization has been. If you watch this team, you can see what's going on right now. I get being optimistic. I've been optimistic for plenty of years throughout this rebuild. I was confident that things would get better for this organization, that we would see improvements, but I have not seen it.
I have not either. But Ben, let's kind of dive deeper into this 7-game losing streak. I mean, it has been the lowest of the lows over the last week for the Nationals. Let's kind of jump into that. But before that, I'm going to tell you guys about our friends over at Supply House and get the supplies that you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. I'm in an apartment here now, and we all know that apartments and rentals, they've got their issues. Well, I go to supplyhouse.com and I have a plumbing issue, or whether I have an issue with my oven, and I can find the parts that'll deliver to me for a good price, easy, and of course they give you the information on what I need to do in order to fix that issue. So if you have a rental, or even if you own a property, save some money with our friends at Supply House. They're the experts and they get it done. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Again, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. And now we get back into it with Ben Strober. Ben, let's jump into this here because the Nationals are on this 7-game losing skid right now. Where do we begin? The offense hasn't scored four runs in like a week at this point.
Right.
Davey Martinez is, again, as we just talked about, kind of on a warming seat at this point. And the Nationals just simply are not playing well. You're not getting the best of starts. The bullpen is the bullpen at this point. They are the worst in all of baseball. What gives? Like, what do you think has been the main issue so far for the Nationals in 2025 and more recently over the last week?
It's interesting because I wouldn't even really say the bullpen has been the biggest factor for them losing the past 7 games, which is surprising considering it's the worst bullpen in baseball, ERA-wise at 7.07. That has been the factor that has lost them plenty of games before we got into, now mid-May, the schedule is already rounding. It's getting late pretty early on this Nationals team with this 7-game losing streak. You fall to 8 games under 500, and you had a sense of optimism maybe just over a week and a half ago after they win that game against the Guardians in the doubleheader 10-9. They were only 2 games under 500 at that point. And then you go on to lose 7 games in a row for this Nationals team. But it's everything. The hitting has been abysmal, as we've talked about. And, it starts with the staff. Darnell Coles and co. This Nationals team, the hitting has been so inconsistent really throughout the year. You'll have your nights where the Nationals are pouring on 15 hits, scoring 10 runs, and then the next night they'll have 3 or 4 total hits. I think they had 5 hits last night in the loss against Atlanta. And it really just comes down to the performers, the bats that the Nats have on this team as well, because in the series this past weekend against St. Louis, C.J. Abrams had a really great series. Everyone else, not so much. So you're not really getting consistent production from anyone on this team, really, other than Abrams and Wood, and then Lowe, who has gotten hot for a couple of spurts. He's had a couple of slumps as well. And then there's Josh Bell to consider as well, because Josh Bell, he's on a 3-game hitting streak right now, but he has just been awful. Yeah. He has been so bad that he cannot be justified to be in the lineup right now over Alex Call, who's hitting over 350 still, I believe. So it's just unbelievable that the lineups they're rolling out are just awful. That's the point.
Yeah, Josh Bell last night batting 6th. No. How about no? The worst hitter in all of baseball statistically is in the middle of your lineup. Like, yes, he's not like he's batting 4th or 5th like he was earlier on this season. But for him to bat ahead Dylan Cruz, no. Dylan Cruz, this is my big gripe, Ben. Dylan Cruz batting right behind Josh Bell. The 2 really struggling hitters right now on this team are batting back-to-back in the middle of this lineup. That is a big no-no. And I think during this time, like when you have no protection in this lineup, in the way that this lineup is so inconsistent, it has gotten a little bit better as of recently. but there's no consistency whatsoever. And I think that's tough for the guys because, again, Ben, like you've played sports, you have like your things that you want to stay consistent, the meal that you eat before the game. And in baseball, when you play 162 games, there's a routine that you want in place. Typically, you might bat in the second inning and you're already used to watching a pitcher from the dugout or whatever it may be. And there is no consistency there. And I think that's kind of been the telling truth here as of recent with teams that are getting hot versus teams who are not getting hot, and the Nationals are not. So I think that comes into play here a little bit. But then also, as we kind of mentioned, it's the offense at this point. And the offense goes back to Davey Martinez and Darnell Coles, the hitting coach. Everything connects here, Ben. That's kind of what I'm getting at. The struggles of this team goes back to Davey Martinez. It goes back to Darnell Coles. And the thing is that's frustrating is that this team does have talent. You've got James Wood. You've got C.J. Abrams. You've got Nathaniel Lowe. Keibert Ruiz is finally having a career year here in D.C. And there's nothing to show for it at this point, Ben. Nothing.
I'll make the point right now as well, although, we'll put so much of this blame on Martinez and Coles. Rizzo, as much as this pains me to say, he did not have a good offseason. And
did not.
I'm not sure what the situation is with ownership. And that's why, I'm a little bit more reluctant having this conversation right now because I'm not sure what kind of autonomy he was given money spending wise. But the players he did pick up, other than Lowe in the trade, were not good.
No.
The guys that were brought in out of the bullpen were absolutely abysmal. They give another 2-year deal to Trevor Williams, and he has not looked very good this year out of the starting rotation. Soroka, since he's come back, he's been all right, but he has battled injury. And, you can't discount that. And Rizzo, I think, is a great general manager. I think he has proven that he can build, perennial contenders the way the Nationals were in the 2010s decade. He knows what it takes to build a great team. He just has not done so to this point. And I think you do have to mention that at this point. You can put a lot of the blame on Davey Martinez, the players, Darnell Coles, but Mike Rizzo is the man who built this current team to this point this year. And a lot of the players that have not performed are because these are guys that he signed.
Yeah, and that's what it comes back to, Ben. I think Rizzo, like if you look at what the offseason was, bringing Nathaniel Lowe, that was a great move so far. That's proven to be a good move. They might trade him at this deadline. He's got another year of control after 2025, so that could make for some interesting conversations as we get down to the trade deadline. But Colin Poche, DFA'd a few weeks ago. What was it? 2 weeks ago at this point. Then Lucas Sims DFA'd after Friday's game. They did not waste any time. He walked the yard on Friday night against the Cardinals. He's led Major League Baseball and hit batters. I mean, it was a pretty disgusting, brutal performance. Basically, every time Lucas Sims or Colin Poche came out, they moved off them before we even got to the middle of May. And those were like the guys that people were really high on Lucas Sims. I don't know if you remember, but like Pitching Ninja, Ben, like he was raving about Lucas Sims. And I've heard of Lucas Sims, like with the Cincinnati Reds, the Red Sox, and always knew that he had the stuff. But, you can just say that like, oh, everyone has stuff in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
That's the funniest part with this Nationals team. I've heard Davey make those comments where he says he's got great stuff. I think he actually said that back in 2019 when Trevor Rosenthal was on the mound stinking up the joint. One of the quotes was that Rosenthal has great stuff. He's just got to find the zone. Well, if you can't find the zone, you can't pitch in the big leagues. That I don't care how good your stuff is if you can't throw strikes.
I agree. And it's ridiculous at this point, Ben. It's ridiculous. It's getting old. People are getting sick and tired of it, right? 7-game losing skid. We thought that we'd be decent this year, and they were. They were two games below 500 just last week.
The fan morale is really, really bad right now.
It's bad. And I have not seen it like this since 2019. Hear that out again. Let me say it again. This team and the fan base right now, it has not been this toxic around the team since 2019. Do you agree with that?
I would absolutely 100% agree. What I was going to go into here, the Nats' next series on the road in Baltimore. I mean, there might be nobody at that game because I think both fan bases right now are so pissed off at how their ball clubs have been this year. So I don't expect a lot of Nats fans to travel to that game. There probably will be a decent amount just because it is Camden Yards. It is the Masson Cup, so people will travel out there for that, for the last time that those two will play under the same Masson contingency. But then they come back home next Tuesday for a series with Atlanta. I don't think anybody's going to be there. I really don't think there's going to be a lot of fans at these games. And I've already seen people on Twitter saying that Nats fans should be boycotting going to the games until there are changes within this organization. They do not want Mark Lerner and co. to receive a dime more of their money.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of Nationals fans are here, Ben. But let's get into this now, because the Nationals, they do play today. They have an opportunity to try to get off this 7-game losing skid. They play in Atlanta tonight against the Braves, who are 21-21 on the year. You're going up against a pretty good pitcher with Bryce Elder. Let's preview that game after this, Ben. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So the Nats, they're trying to get off this 7-game losing skid. You got Mitchell Parker tonight, who, by the way, Ben, Mitchell Parker was kind of riding this magical carpet ride earlier on this season. He was looking awesome earlier this year. He had a couple of outings where, that one against the Orioles was incredible. 8 innings, 1 hit, giving up no earned runs. He walked 2 batters only in those 8 innings. And really over the last few here, the last 3, he has given up 6 earned runs. He gave up 5 earned runs against the Reds. And then this last time out against the Cardinals, he gave up 4 earned runs. Now you have to go up against a hot Braves team that we know they're a lot better than what the record indicates. And we go up against Bryce Elder, who, in my opinion, is a lot better than what his ERA shows, which is just under a 5 right now. But what are some of your keys to tonight's game, Ben? What do you want to see, and what do you think happens?
Mitchell Parker has to find a way to stay in the strike zone, because if you look back after that Orioles start on April 22nd, he started to walk a lot more batters. He was averaging a walk per inning in his starts against the Mets and the Reds. His command was a little bit better. Against St. Louis, he only walked 2 in 4 innings, but he gave up 7 hits, so he was getting hit around for 4 earned runs. He's not a strikeout guy. Like, we've seen that in his career, that his best formula is pitching to contact. So he's a guy that is going to have nights where he gets hit around. That's kind of just who he is as a pitcher, his mechanics, his stuff. Like, he doesn't necessarily have the best stuff in baseball, but he can still be effective. And we've seen that throughout his career. He's still very young. He is still developing, but he has to stay in the zone, because he's a guy that has to set himself up for success by being dominant in terms of his command. In the past couple outings where his command hasn't been good, he's put guys on. That's what allows you to find yourself in disadvantageous situations where you're getting hit around. So I think if he can stay in the zone a little bit tonight, I know the Braves lineup is pretty potent at this point. They're starting to get hot at this point in the year after starting 0-7. They've climbed back to 500. But he just has to stay in the zone.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a big key. Like, again, Mitchell Parker, his command. I was at that Mets game where he walked like the first, like, I think I want to say like 3 of the first 4 batters of the game and gave up 5 earned runs in that first inning. Like, it was really bad. But even then, he's going to have to stay in the zone. And then also going up against Bryce Elder, he's given up 8 home runs so far this season. I look at James Wood tonight, man. This is an opportunity for you to go yard. This is an opportunity for you guys to get some ducks in the pond. Hit those guys in. CJ Abrams, James Wood. When you're in a 7-game losing skid, your stars, they have to come out and they have to perform. CJ Abrams, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, who, yes, the numbers have not indicated that he's a star, but he's made some great defensive plays. I need to see something from those guys, because if it's not going to be Davey Martinez, it's going to have to be one of you guys, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, we need to find more opportunities to get star players with opportunities with guys on base. I mean, how many solo homers have we seen for James Wood this year? Abrams has only hit last night. The first pitch of the game he sends out of the ballpark. But this team has not done a good enough job generating enough offense, whether it's taking walks has been an issue. I think I've seen times where the Nationals have been reluctant to taking walks. They're chasing pitches out of the zone. You need to find a way to get guys on base and maybe be aggressive with the base running. If you think back to the first half last year when the Nationals were actually in contention for a wild card spot, the formula for the Nationals were being demons on the base paths. They were terrorizing people with the way they stole bases, the aggressive approach that they brought. And we just haven't really been able to see that this year because guys can't even get on. If you're not getting on base, you're essentially worthless at this point.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of been the story of the Nats so far. They have not been able to get on base. They have not been very good with runners in scoring position either. And the Nats we're in a bad spot right now, Ben. We just are. So, You know what? Maybe we can get back off it tonight. But Ben, always appreciate the time, man. Where can people catch you over on Twitter, and where can they see your work? College graduate, Ben, by the way.
Yeah, that's one week away. 1 week away, college graduation. But you can catch my work over on Twitter at Ben Strober Media. If you're listening tonight, I'll be with Linnell for the schedule release for the Washington Commanders on the Team 980. So you'll probably hear me over on our stations at some point where Ryan is also with me. So that's where you can find some of my work right now.
Of course. All right, Ben. Always appreciate the time, man.
Appreciate it, man. Always love coming on.
Of course. I'm Ryan Clary. He's Ben Strober, and this is Locked On Nationals. Maybe the Nats can lose, or not lose. Maybe the Nats, they could lose. They could very much so lose. It's 7 straight games, but maybe the Nats just get a win tonight. I think I'm just used to that L word right now, but we'll see what happens. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.